Good evening, Twitch. How you doing? It is Thursday, December 31st, 2020, and Happy New Year's Eve. This is going to be a bit of an unconventional and probably a really overall a short stream. I don't expect this to be exactly too long of a stream. But here we are. We are at the end of 2020. And I know a lot of people are probably going to say, and will say, it was a terrible year. And overall, I would agree. I would definitely agree. It definitely has not been a kind year to me as well. Um, hasn't been a brutal year, unfortunately. Like some of the other people I know, it's been somewhat tragic. I have lost some family members along the way, and obviously, stream hasn't gotten any bigger and stuff. But I thought, you know what? I think it'll be interesting just to simply take a look back and kind of look over all of the games I streamed, all of the talk about each of the games, what I've really actually have thought about it now that I have a kind of a hindsight here to look back on, and I just enjoy a couple of drinks and wax somewhat a little bit of nostalgia as we welcome into the new year 2021. Like I said, pretty much want to be able to kind of relax for a bit and really go over also what I'd like to do for the future in terms of streaming, because I realize with 2020 being the way it was and is, and what 2021 is looking out to be, for better and for worse, I've got to change quite a bit. And I mean a lot, honestly, in regards to my content. And we'll go over that in due time. And like I said, I don't have anything truly scripted or anything like that, so this will be more or less, a lot of it's going to be off the cuff, kind of going in depth here about certain games and such, and then finally, you know what I do in terms of the background. If you ever watch Proton John streams, I know I don't exactly make as much of a strong presence there anymore in terms of chat and actually being there anymore in terms of an active member, especially in a crowd of over 1,000 people. But at least as I take care of tracking the basics, the basics of the stream. And I thought, why don't I do that for myself? And that's actually what I did. I actually spent today going over and doing a lot of data entry, given the highlights of all of my streams and such, and really just kind of going over the numbers and going over more, not the in-depth statistics and stuff. I'll actually talk a little bit about the channel analytics, because I want people to actually kind of get an understanding of what it's actually like. People always wonder it's like on the extreme ends, and I think you have people like Disguised Toast that have done an excellent job, and honestly, bravo for them for actually being incredibly brave of actually putting that information out there. And there's nothing to actually say that you can't put that information out there. It's obviously just so taboo because it's about money, and the moment you start talking about money, people are really, they're gonna get their hair in knots to say. But why don't we actually start and actually just kind of talk about the games we streamed this year? Kind of went back to streaming. 2019 was, if anything, actually probably an even worse year for me, as strange as that sounds, because that was the time where I was actually working at a job I was not happy with, and I was always constantly stressed and exhausted, and not the good type of stress. There's good types of stress and there's bad types of stress out there. And in 2019, I worked for a job that I didn't like it there. The people there were incredibly uncouth. in actually how they handled problems, and never mind actually being able to actually invest in the business to make the job properly safe. So I kind of wrecked my body a little bit actually. Um, while at the other extreme, having to actually try and meet up with the requests of the clients and such, which was another unfortunate part of the job. And I'm no longer with that company, but then I actually was able to get a job through a temp agency in this very end of 2019 actually. So it feels like I've kind of gone full circle actually. Um with everything, but in March I was actually I was laid off from the job obviously because of the pandemic. And that honestly actually hurt. I wasn't a huge fan of the job, to be quite frank. It was a job. It was a job that honestly, more often than not, I'll admit, I actually felt extremely lonely because it was very much a job where you basically saw your fellow man suffer. And not in the, like, brutally working themselves to the bone, like in an Amazon warehouse factory or just simple any warehouse. I just mean the people that were there were people who unfortunately couldn't get anything better. And not because they were not qualified or anything of intelligence. It was a situation where it's like, these are really just the jobs that are available now. And it honestly actually is extremely demoralizing when you actually deal with that sort of situation, a work environment. Never mind the fact hearing that every single person had multiple jobs, which made it even rougher actually, because you basically had people who were working in the morning and working at night. So basically, they were literally slaves, pretty much. Like, we're talking waking up at 6 a.m. and not getting home until midnight, if not later, actually. So they were literally just working day in, day out, which, you know, kind of wore on me, actually. Just kind of seeing that atmosphere, not even basically being able to have people to talk to and such. Because it was really just kind of a sit down, be quiet, and do the work. And I had I was actually worried about the job because it actually had quotas, but I was able to meet the quotas consistently. But because of the pandemic, I got laid off, and unfortunately, despite my best efforts in trying to actually work with other temp agencies and such, I haven't been able to actually secure any sort of employment. So it's been actually really rough for the start of it. And kind of goes to the point where, and then this will get into where we're to go into 2021 and such, because I realize I'm oddly enough at my most productive when I'm actually streaming as well. And I don't know what it is about streaming that does that, but that's that level of engagement that just puts my mind in a completely different active mindset. I feel like, honestly, I know a lot of people like this, obviously this is a hobby. I don't get paid for it, but would I actually like to set a job? Absolutely. But I don't have the bombastic um attitude that people are looking for, the whole shock values um that people expect. I'm probably, if anything, the most boring person on Twitch actually. But, I don't have my looks to consistently sell. I don't have extreme charisma. Also, how's it going, Savior? How are you doing, man? Cheers. Cheers to you. Happy, blah, blah, blah. I could talk. Happy New Year's Eve, Savior. Happy New Year's Eve, the Savior 85. If it's Happy New Year's where you are in your part of the world, then Happy New Year to you, man. Yeah, oddly enough, and I think part of it is also age when it comes to working those type of jobs. There's something different when you're My first job, I was 16 years old. And there's something different, honestly, when you're working when you're younger. Because there is that exuberance. You do have the energy. You're happy that people are giving you the responsibility. But when you're older, that fades. Or when the people around you are, that exuberant age, that wears down on you. And like, honestly, I feel bad for a lot of younger people actually working in today's modern work environments, because there's only been more, higher quotas have only increased. Actually, first off, there's actually been the consistent introduction of quotas where jobs there shouldn't be quotas. And there's so much more monitoring now, more than ever before, that you don't actually have the time to relax, because we know, unfortunately, there are a lot more people out there who basically, we always know that, there's always going to be bad eggs out there in the workforce. You always know about it. Doesn't matter what job you actually work in, unfortunately. And they're doing it, the monitoring, you would assume the intent is to actually monitor, those people who are the bad eggs get caught in the act and such, but unfortunately it brings such undue stress. I don't even know why we're talking about this, actually. We're supposed to be freaking talking about games. Why don't I actually get some music going? We can actually start talking about this year here, and we're going to be listening to some music by Popsky. The only thing I wasn't able to do in preparation for tonight's stream, I was kicking myself to, like I said, I am impassioned when it comes to streaming. Like, if you actually want to see this energy, it really actually does come out when I stream. But the only thing I wasn't able to actually add on to the stream here tonight was actually a simple add-on that allows you to actually show what you're actually music playing. So this music is by Popsky. If you ever watched Proton John's streams, this is from his Ultra Pack here. So I'll be playing some random songs. But if you ever want some copyright-free music to be able to use in your YouTube videos and your streaming, definitely go check out Popsky. Whether it's on Twitch or his Bandcamp, or his Spotify account. I don't know why he's not leveraging that more, but he isn't. But when we actually get started here, I want to actually really sit down and be able to talk about everything of streaming and stuff. And, as I started, I actually got laid off back in March, actually, and actually, no, I didn't get laid off in March. I got laid off actually at the start of April. My mistake. I was actually getting to the point where I was actually able to start getting the courage to actually get back into streaming and such, because it would literally, my routine before I actually got laid off was get home from work. I would play Monster Hunter World. I actually miss playing with Otto and Juker, actually. I would go to sleep. I would wake up, and I would have just enough time before the night shift. It was basically an afternoon to, midnight job. I'd work in a data entry center. That's what the job was. It was pure data entry. And I tried doing afternoon streams, if you actually remember, for this earlier this year, like the start I started streaming. January and February, I did not stream at all. 2019, I had the least amount of streams I've ever done before in my life. Which is honestly gobsmacking when I compare it to, what I've been doing the last couple months. Have actually been uploading all of the VODs to my YouTube channel. I literally went from 2015 and up to 2019. They were all done. All 4 years of those streamings, of anything I've highlighted from my Twitch channel, are now uploaded onto YouTube. They're not published. I want to make that clear, actually. Apparently. So they're not all available for viewing and stuff. I'm still just letting, basically, if I beat a game, all the videos will be published on that day. I know it's not smart, but these are VODs, so this is content I consider it's okay to actually upload them all on one single day. Because I'm not even trying to inflate my numbers or anything like that in terms of the amount of videos I have. I just want to be able to put the VODs out there and have another place for them to exist. Because if, God forbid, Amazon does all of a sudden shut down Twitch. And they could do that. And that would honestly suck for a guy like me, because then I would have no record of anything I actually have in terms of what I've actually been doing online. So in March, actually, the first thing I actually did, I actually played Dragon Valor, an old PlayStation 1 game. I was able to actually, I was actually able to play that, and it was actually around the same time that I was able to get one other nice little device here. If you ever watched a YouTube channel called My Life in Gaming, pretty much for years, they've actually kind of been the de facto, like, how to get the best quality out of X console. You know, they have it's extremely inspiring, the type of content they actually have made. And obviously, a lot of it is, I'd honestly would argue, is outdated. They need to really actually redo everything. And I feel like I know a lot of content creators hate the fact, like, why do I have to make the same content every single year? For that type of content, I think it's actually okay to. I think it's okay to remake that content, because you never know what's actually going to change. The capture cards are going to change. The technology, the applications, the programs. One of the reasons I was never able to really actually stream any PlayStation game, actually, is because PlayStation stream at 240, or just have a display resolution of 240p. And what I was able to actually do, I was able to buy the FrameMeister, that super expensive upscaler from Japan, and I was able to actually order it and get sent to me. And I was able to actually start streaming PlayStation 1 games now. I still used the PlayStation 2, but I was now able to go through the actual FrameMeister, upscale the PlayStation resolution to a 1080p source, and it looked great, actually. You know, the game itself, it's a game that was developed by Namco all those years ago. It's a simple action, action game, and a lot of old action games on the PlayStation are extremely slow compared to your modern action hack and slash. Are extremely slow. But I love it because it does one of the few things nominated games actually have ever tried to do. Having basically every single chapter be a different character, having the very much like a choose your own adventure, and it happens in the game itself, your actual decisions. And it's only, they're very binary decisions. It's more of like, did you find or explore X area, or did you make X or Y choice? That it really just came down to such simple things. But you probably play it today, it's gonna look very silly, but I still like it. It holds a nice little place in my heart. And it also has a New Game Plus, which makes it even better and encourages the actual replayability of the game. I feel like that's actually a better way of doing the replayability, because actually beating Dragon Valor didn't take that long. I think it took me maybe 12 hours. Actually, probably took us less, actually. I think it took us 9 hours, actually, to go through Dragon Valor. And that's messing around, too. But if you ever find it, it's fairly cheap, actually, on the PlayStation 1. And if you're looking for a nice, simple game where you kill a bunch of dragons, hey, it's there for you. Then, I really should have put months on slideshows and stuff, but later, actually, I have something to actually help me here. I did the data entry. I have an entire spreadsheet now of everything. So I also just realized I have this in reverse here. There's actually one thing we need to show first. I actually also went through, I know this is a minor detail here, but I want to actually include it anyway. Bravely Default 2, the demo. We did stream that, actually. And I liked it. I'm actually looking forward to it when it actually comes out. I have not played the final demo. I'm surprised they even did a final demo of the game. Because I'm always mixed now with a lot of games doing, what do you call it? I'm always mixed when a game does, here's a demo, but then you can continue off where you left off. And usually the gap between me playing a demo and then actually starting the game becomes so great, I'll completely forget of where I was in the story, or what I actually wanted to do. And I don't know if the final demo is actually like that or not. I actually liked the Bravely Default system. That was honestly really interesting. I never played a Bravely Default game before, but just seeing what you could actually do in terms of power, because I even beat the, was it the super boss for the demo. I'm surprised they even put in the super boss. Had a long battle with that. And then when I went on YouTube and saw how other people did it, it just shows that there's so much potential in terms of the RPG combat of what you can just outright exploit. And that to me honestly looks like it'll be a fun game to play. Graphically, it's going to be very chibi-ish, and that's the direction. I mean, it's weird actually even looking at this artwork here of Bravely Default 2, of our main character here, when in reality, she's going to be a chibi figure. But then again, all the other Bravely Default games were chibi figures. It's kind of like a next generation's Final Fantasy game, and I think that's actually pretty cool. Why don't we actually now go backwards here? We actually went towards a collection of mana. Played through Final Fantasy Adventure on the Game Boy, and then also Trials of Mana, which actually came out. Obviously, this is a game that was released in 1999. Or not 1999, 2019. I know what I'm doing. But obviously I never got to play the Game Boy one. I never got to play Trials of Mana because it was never actually translated. I had a lot of fun actually streaming these games. Like, these were games I didn't really want to put down. I will say I had a bit of a rougher time with Trials of Mana because the leveling system was really weird. As well as, honestly, like, you could see they were really ambitious with the mechanics and such. But it was still just really awesome to be able to get an entire translation, an official translation, and to be able to actually play the game legit, instead of relying on fan translations. And I actually enjoyed it. Like, it kind of grew on me, honestly. I think, honestly, that appreciation only actually increased when, well, I played Dokapon Kingdom, apparently. That's where the appreciation went. No, that's not, actually. But in between, I actually played Dokapon Kingdom. This was my first time actually using the Dolphin emulator, actually. I'll admit, I actually do own a copy of Dokapon Kingdom. It's not for the Wii, it's for the PlayStation 2. But I was actually able to finally try out Dolphin, get it to actually work with Dokapon Kingdom. Actually, you know what? I just realized. No, I have actually used Dolphin before, and that was for Fortune Street. I'm terribly sorry. I'm lying on my own stream and reviews. There you go. This is where we're waxing so much nostalgic, we've completely forgotten about 2019. Where I used to... Actually, I think it was actually in 2020 I was streaming Fortune Street. That's actually... You know, that's actually what happened. It was actually this year. I did learn how to use Dolphin, but it was first for Fortune Street. And then I finally said, you know what? I want to actually play Dokapon. Obviously, I didn't have anyone to play it with, so I played against the AI, and the AI... They can be brutal, but it wasn't as bad as I thought it would be. I still love the one moment, though, where, because it's AI, the AI does cheat. But when the AI cheats, it's actually hilarious. Because I literally had everything set up to beat the final boss, and then in comes the computer, and just beats Rika right from under me. That was still absolutely hilarious to me. But this is actually what I wanted to go into with Collection of Mana. We actually got to play the Trials of Mana remake. This is one of those games where they clearly learned the difference between it went that half step forward that they needed to with Trials of Mana remake. Hey, how's it going, Fabio? Was dealing with cheating AI today, wasn't a fan. I saw you playing Ninja Turtles, so I don't know. Actually, I can't remember if the AI... I don't think the AI cheats in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles for the NES, but hey, you know. Props for actually trying to beat that terrible game. I own it. I have a copy of it. It's still a brutally difficult game. It's really the ending that actually sucks. Like, the dam is pretty much like Battletoads Turbo Tunnel. It's that hump there that you kind of just have to deal with. The only problem with Battletoads, you gotta deal with other speed bumps along the way. But how's it going, Fabio? Today I'm just kind of spending some time, waxing nostalgic. Like I said, I don't expect this to be too much of a long stream here. Just kind of go over all the games I streamed over this year and what I'd like to try and do for 2021. You got further than you have before? Dude, trust me, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, anytime you can get further in that game, it's a win. Like, especially when you get to the final 2 stages. Oof. They, like, that is a game that did not pull its punches. It's still, like, somewhat nostalgic to me. I don't know how people like Cthulhu can actually beat the game. For now, though, why don't I actually go back and Trials of Mana here? This was a game that I tried the demo. This is actually a demo we tried actually at the very end of March, and we were able to get it. This is one of those few games where I'm trying to actually think, did this game come out this year? Did the Trials of Mana remake come out this year? Because I have a feeling it actually did, because I wouldn't play a demo. And then... this actually might have been a game that came out this year. Oh my god. It did, April 24th, 2020. This is a game that actually came out this year. I completely forgot Trials of Mana Remake came out this year. This is how far down 2020 has been. I feel like I've completely forgotten every single game I've actually beaten, because that wasn't even on my list. And now that it is on my list, this actually might have been the best game I actually played this year in terms of the games that came out in 2020. Because when Secret of Mana, the remake, came out, I found some things charming with it. I think, if anything, they were too faithful to Secret of Mana. Like, they literally got the artwork right. They got the voice acting was very charming and such. I actually did like it. I'm probably in a minority of that. The music is probably the worst part. The remastered music. There were some parts that were just absolutely terrible in terms of the Secret of Mana remastered. But it clearly showed that you can't do the half step. You gotta take the full step. And I feel like Trials of Mana is the 3/4 step. It's not the full step. Because when you look between other remakes, and I'm alluding obviously to Final Fantasy VII Remake, there's a big difference between, I don't want to say effort, because that's a misnomer. I think, if anything, the best word to use would be investment. The investment that Trials of Mana Remastered got versus Final Fantasy Remake got. Final Fantasy VII Remake got the full step. You know, to the point where they literally just they realize, like, we just gotta change up the entire gameplay. Trials of Mana was the 3/4 step because they overhauled and improved and modernized. They still did modernization. That was actually, if anything, probably the best part, actually. Like, they kept the story, they kept the awkward script, and they also improved, like, that was, if anything, actually the weak part, was that they kept the script, actually. But they were also still so extremely faithful to the original that it, oddly enough, felt like it was kind of somewhat holding itself back because of it. Voice acting in Trials of Mana Remake, I'm sorry, that is still some of the most laughable voice acting I've heard. I still remember. I'm Charlotte from Wendell. That was still some of the best. Same thing with, like, Kevin's voice acting. I would not imagine the Beastman character to be literally like an extremely adolescent child, because that's what he sounded like in terms of the English voice acting. Hawkeye was perfectly fine. Angela was fine. Reese was fine. I think I would even actually go so far as say, I'm trying to actually remember the actual warrior's default name here. I'm drawing a blank, unfortunately. You can tell who actually partied with. I used Angela, I used Reese, and I used Hawkeye. But this was definitely a game I would actually recommend. Because it's modernized, so you get that third person hack and slash style gameplay. But if you still want that little bit of nostalgia there, you'll be living in a much better designed world than what Secret of Mana remake got. And Trials of Mana, I should also say, high replayability, surprisingly enough. Because they actually added New Game Plus, and they even added a super dungeon in it as well. So you could literally, because the achievements in this game are ridiculous. They're a little bit ridiculous. One of the achievements is literally beat the game 6 times. I know that's a lot, but that's where the New Game Plus comes in, because you can actually carry over your levels and equipment from your characters. So at the very least, you'll be beating the game at its normal difficulty twice. And then for the next 4 times, you'll basically be able to raffle stomp the entire game. As you go through each of the other characters, because every single character has their own story, while everyone else kind of has their own side stories. And honestly, I think that's actually a really inventive idea in terms of the storytelling part, though. Like, you have a more focused cast of characters, but some of them will basically fall aside towards who the actual main antagonist is. And it feels actually weird knowing there's actually, that there's 3 main antagonists at the beginning, but then only one of the antagonists reigns supreme. And that was actually really interesting, actually coming from playing the Trials of Mana from the Collections of Mana game, so the actual SNES version, which I actually really enjoyed. And in between actually playing Trials of Mana, well, there's the other game one of the other games I actually got to play in 2020, Streets of Rage 4. It's okay. It grew on me the more I finally actually learned how to fight in the game and how. And here's the important part: like, the art by Lizard Cube, phenomenal. They definitely learn to live up to their standard. The actual surprise for this game actually came from Guard Crush. And if you've never heard of Guard Crush, they're the actual game developers that only have one other game under their belt. And it's actually a fighting game where you can actually play as the Nostalgia Critic. I know, it doesn't actually lead much hope into it, but surprisingly enough, Guard Crush actually delivered, and .emu actually published a decent beat-em-up game. I say decent. It's not. The one flaw with this game, it's not as difficult as Streets of Rage 3, thankfully. You can actually beat this game on higher levels of difficulty and still succeed. I would go so far, though, there was still a lot of give and take systems in this game. Like, I found it interesting. I'll still say this. I think I liked Streets of Rage 3 system a little bit better, because actually having a meter in which I can use my super without having to lose health versus using my super, losing health, and then having to work it back up. 99% of the time, it works fine, but then you run into the one issue that Guard Crush really actually made a misstep with this game. Actually, technically, there's 2. So, in most beat-em-ups, characters can actually use their super, and it's basically your get-out-of-jail-free card, because you could let yourself get beat up, and depending on the difficulty, one hit could just be a pinch, or it could basically be half of your health bar. This game did not mind letting you get comboed. I mean, full on, get launched in the air, and then get absolutely destroyed. If you're that unlucky. But they actually have patched this game and actually added that back in. So if you are actually being pummeled and you're fighting on a higher difficulty, you can actually now use your defensive special. Super special, it's tomato. and actually get that get out of jail free card. But there's still one other issue though. Super armor. If you've never heard of what super armor is, pretty much if you actually hit an enemy, they don't flinch. So if they're going to attack you and you're attacking them, it doesn't matter what you do, they're still going to commit to their attack. That was the one problem with this game. Certain characters and certain bosses probably shouldn't have super armor, and probably the enemies that actually should have had super armor didn't. Or bosses as well. Because it's weird to say what was it, levels, was it stage 2 and I think stage 6 actually had the hardest bosses in this game. And they're literally the same enemy. The Commissioner in Streets of Rage 4 is the hardest boss in Streets of Rage 4. Like, the ending is still actually difficult because they just throw the kitchen sink at you. But it's because they're throwing the kitchen sink at you. So you're just getting swarmed with a bunch of enemies in a mad dash. But in terms of balancing and actual gameplay, though, I actually enjoyed playing this game. I'm actually surprised I didn't actually see myself coming back to this game for more, and probably the main reason I didn't is because I didn't have anyone to play this game with. You know, it has online co-op. It also, strangely enough, has a versus mode. I probably wouldn't recommend that. But just being able to actually play the game with a friend as a fun beat-em-up, this actually works. And especially since it got patched. I think if anything, the only other downside about the game is maybe the actual more additions of characters and such. Like, game, I'm not going to say it's short. It definitely is not a short game. It probably will take you about 2 hours to beat the game in a normal run, assuming you know what you're doing. 3, maybe 4 if you don't. But the difficulty kind of goes around the place. I don't know if they made the game a little bit harder. I think they should, because the final bosses were... They're hard if you don't know what you're doing, but once you see a simple exploit, they become super, super easy. I think that's it, actually, for April. And actually, technically, the start of May, which then leads me to Bloodstained, Ritual of the Night. Finally, actually got to play another Metroidvania game after so long, and this was... this is... I'm still gonna simply say this. This is a Kickstarter game through and through. For better and for worse. I am not a huge fan. I can never get to a fanatical level. I can't... Someone says something about someone, like, I don't get that volatile reaction where it becomes like, I am going to erase you from this entire universe if you disagree with my opinion. That sort of fanaticism when it comes to fandom. So when I actually look at this game and actually looking back on it, this is definitely a Kickstarter game through and through. This is a franchise that definitely put the cart before the horse. Because there's so many plot holes, and I know I know Intus Creatus have done an excellent job designing 2 actual 2D Castlevania, retro Castlevania style games. But that still doesn't obviously help. That's not really, at least in my opinion, building up the franchise to be where it is, because this is technically the Endpoint and Circle of the Moon games are prequels still out of the group. And I feel like this should have been... This was basically like trying to be your Symphony of Night, and it very much is a Symphony of Night, without actually having the Castlevania games to kind of set up the lore for everything. And I feel like they didn't think about the story in depth. You still need to play this game still? I don't know if I could actually recommend this game, honestly. I played through it. It was... It really felt like I was actually playing a very archaic version of Symphony of Night. Because even though it had everything you might like from games like Aria of Sorrow, the Game Boy the Game Boy, the Game Boy Advanced Circle of the, not Circle of the Night, Symphony of the Night game, because it had the Soul system and everything. And this game has obviously the what is it? What do they call it? I don't want to say gems. I thought they actually had a special word for it or not. Crystals. I'm going to call them crystals, actually. Where you basically absorb the power of the monsters and such. You know. And then the weapons had moves. Actually, here's the worst part about this game, actually. The weapons had movesets, but they were exclusive to very specific weapons. And that was clearly not fleshed out enough. If they actually let you have an entire moveset with the weapon type instead of the specific weapon, probably would have enjoyed using that more, because being able to actually use moves, and I hate actually doing fighting game inputs in games. I really do. I still enjoy playing fighting games, and I don't mind doing fighting game inputs, but I could tell you for a fact, though, that doing actual fighting game inputs in a Igavania game or Metroidvania game it didn't feel like it worked. Like something was clearly missing. Either the button inputs were too complex, and like to me, and let's put this in a frame of reference, I can barely perform a dragon punch. I have a lot of criticism towards every game I play. Like I could take a game I actually really enjoy, like Trials of Mana, and criticize the heck out of it. Actually, there were a few things I didn't even talk about Trials of Mana. For example, here's some criticisms to throw at that game, aside from the voice acting was definitely one thing to criticize, but in terms of gameplay though, they didn't really allow you to play with... They did one thing right. They allowed you to be able to switch your classes and everything like that, but being able to actually respec in Trials of Mana was kind of a pain in the butt. It really was. It really was a pain in the butt. Oh, perfect. Great. Just in time for 2021, because I don't want to be there anymore. But no, like, Bloodstained... And I think here's the other thing that actually held Bloodstained back as well, and the Alkahest. There's an item in the game, it's called Alkahest. It basically is you're allowing yourself... that's the thing. The alchemy system in the game. That alchemy system needed to go a whole lot further, and they needed to actually let you just play around with that system. Being able to actually create items. Alchemy really should be such a massive part of... should have been a massive part of this game. And it was so overlooked, and what actually hurt the game more, and I now actually remember it, when people were coming in and watching my streams and stuff, they actually let me know that Alkahest used to be a lot cheaper to buy in the store, and you didn't really get a lot of money in that game. The only way to actually get a lot of money in that game was to increase the amount of luck. Almost every other single stat in that game did not matter aside from luck because of how much money you would actually need if you want to actually play around with the alchemy system. Because the enemies were barely dropping Alkahest, and buying it, they made it super expensive because speedrunners... I would honestly say, speedrunners, oddly enough, ruined Bloodstained Ritual of the Night, probably for your average person playing this game. Because you weren't able to really do anything with the Alkahest system. Or the alchemy system. Like, if cooking to actually raise your stats all of a sudden becomes stupidly difficult, you're not going to be able to progress as easily. Actual progression in the game, there would definitely... I think if anything, the only part I would say was probably the most difficult part to try and figure out progression. The train. That Bloodstained did not do a great job of actually telling you what you need to do or where you need to go. Like I said, this was a Kickstarter game through and through. There were definitely things you can exploit. I remember exploiting the portraits so much, because it was just that powerful. There were obviously a lot of other abilities in that game that were also either... It was very binary. Either the abilities really weren't that great, or they were really, really good, and part of it just simply came down to the fact, were you able to farm and get the item drops needed to power it up? and wasn't consistent. And for me, getting that the portrait shield was basically like having the most powerful Mega Man Leaf Shield on the planet. But just as a quick reference here, I don't know why I played the horror games in May. Let's just put this, let me just get this out there. This is May. We're actually looking at Bloodstained Ritual of the Moon, or Ritual of the Night, and Maximo Goes to Glory. I don't know why I did the horror games in May. I don't understand, but I did. Maximo Goes to Glory, PlayStation 2 game. I am actually surprised how much I struggled in the first world. This game is not it's not an easy game, but it definitely shows its age. Simply because we take a lot of things for granted when we play games now. Like, I was just complaining a second ago about how Ritual of the Night does not actually direct you anywhere. Try figuring out how to beat the first boss without anyone being able to tell you what you should actually do. Because there was only one actual attack that would actually set yourself up to be able to actually damage the first world's boss. And it took me forever to figure it out. I still think it's actually a fun game to play, but man, oh man, that game was not as, that game was actually a little bit more difficult than I thought it would be. A little bit more difficult. Where are we right now here? I think we're about to actually enter, we haven't entered June yet. There's actually one more thing here. Why did I not fall in love with Phantasy Star Online 2? It's not a bad game. But the game does one really, you know, actually, this is another criticism, actually. I could actually say one thing right now. I don't know what's wrong with a lot of games as of late not directing you to where you should go or towards the story. Fantasy Online 2, I think its main problem with me was that it gave you the tutorial mission, but it didn't lead you down the story. That's the thing that, to me, in my opinion, is not hooking the actual average person to play Phantasy Star Online 2. It has a great potential and a big in-depth system for you to actually play, because you play any sort of class you want, switch to any class you want at any time, level up that class anytime you want with that one character, and enjoy yourself. And it finally actually came out after, I almost want to say 8 years of finally actually coming over to the United States here, and it finally came out this year. This was a 2020 game that was originally released in like 2012. That's how old Phantasy Star Online 2 actually is. But the problem with Phantasy Star Online 2 is that they did a terrible job of leading you to actually become hooked on the actual story. I don't know why. I don't know why the game just lets you waffle about and do random quests, and I feel like the only reason they did is because probably a lot of pressure just simply able to release the game in the States just for potential revenue gains for Sega. And at the same time, they probably want to be able to actually have the game be in all regions, so when they actually remake this game, I believe they're doing like a version 6 or something now, that regardless of the region, they'll all be in parity now. And let the NA fans catch up with the story if they actually want. But I think the only reason I didn't get hooked into this is because they literally just threw you into random quests and not actually give you that breadcrumb trail or force you actually on the story. I always like stories. If you lead me towards your story, you will actually want me to get invested in your world, and when I'm actually done with your adventure, I'll actually be able to tell you if it's decent or not. This game did the exact opposite of it. This game left me with no idea of, out of the 100 of NPCs in the actual space station, of where I need to go or what I need to do to be able to actually progress the story. I probably could have leveled up to I think I leveled up a character up to level 20 with one class and not even do a single chapter in Phantasy Star Online 2 story mode. And it really sucks. Like, my hook is always going to be the story. I know a lot of people in this day and age don't really give a damn about stories, but I do, and I still feel like even if you make a basic world of it, if at least I understand what that world is and what I'm working towards, you'll be able to get me to play it. I am actually one of the few people who can actually point to my goddamn bench here, my not bench, bookshelf here, and say, hey, I own actual Phantasy Star Online Episode 3, and I actually had a good time with it because they did a comic book story with it. It's a card game. It's one of the most convoluted card games you'll ever play. But it didn't matter how complicated the actual system was. I had an instruction booklet that explained how to play the game really, really well. And it had a really good story to encourage me to keep on playing. And that's really all you need. Because once you figure out the foundation, I think if anything, most people would be able to actually, take off from it. But unfortunately, without instruction booklets, they kind of fall apart, unfortunately. That was May. Entering into June. You ever played Demon Souls? Have you ever played Dark Souls and then like some super fan goes, "Man, you're such a hipster, man." I was no, not hipster. That's the wrong word. No, you point to that guy. It's like, that guy's a hipster. He played Demon Souls. Yeah, well, you could point to this game and say this Evergrace is the hipster version of Demon Souls. Because if you ever look at From Software's history, they really have only developed maybe 3 games in their entire repertoire. I've made comparisons recently about saying Supergiant has literally just developed Bastion 4 times over. From Software has literally developed Dark Souls. Or what's the next one? What's the one that's supposed to come out now? What's the latest one that's supposed to come out on the PS5? Obviously, Demon Souls is the latest, but it's technically a remake by Bluepoint. I always forget it because my pulse have been off on the Dark Souls community. Let's just go with let's play it safe and say Dark Souls 3 and Bloodstained. No, what was it? Oh shoot, Sekiro. That's it. Yeah, From Software has basically only developed that game, I don't know, maybe 7-8 times over. First you have Kingsfield. Yeah, then you had obviously the Kingsfield sequel stuff, but when it came to the PlayStation 2, they made Evergrace. And that was pretty much the start of actually being Demon Souls before Demon Souls. A complete jank fest. A nonsensical story. And if it wasn't for how silly and how... It wasn't broken, but it definitely was like that awkward PlayStation 2 style game to play. Like, there are clearly other and better responsive games to play. You can play Dynasty Warriors game and have better response from those PlayStation 2 games than you could from playing Evergrace. But it was still weird that I was finally able to actually buy a copy of this game and be able to actually play through it. Still very strange. As well as the most deadpan, like some of the most deadpan voice acting you'll hear. It's not the worst deadpan voice acting you'll hear, but it's definitely up there. I don't think I'll be playing that game again, even though it does actually have a New Game Plus. And it does also have... It actually... Here's the other part that actually... Here's the best proof, actually, that shows that Evergrace is a Dark Souls-style game. It has the Moonlight Greatsword. Every single Dark Souls-style or Kingsfield-style game has the Moonlight Greatsword. This game has a hidden dungeon with the Moonlight Greatsword. And let's move on to Iconoclasts. This was a game I actually got to try back in the PlayStation Experience, I believe in I want to say 2017, actually. It's a very insidious game. It has an extremely colorful and charming world. But that's only on the surface. The moment you actually get past that skin layer there, that world is a horrible, horrible place to live in, and I would not want to wish that on one of my worst enemies. That's like living under a cruel dictatorship with probably one of the most awkward systems I've ever actually have dealt with. And it's a Metroidvania game. And the tool system is actually really interesting. This is a full-on indie dev game that had very interesting platforming. And the platforming, if anything, was probably actually the best part of it. But the story itself, that was such an extremely dark story with binary choices that would actually affect the ending of the game. And it was also letting you play other characters for those small moments that would make the game make the game pretty frustrating, actually. I still remember getting stuck in the tower in Iconoclast, and that was annoying. Like, I was trying to do a 100% run, and I was able to actually do it, except for one achievement left, and that I basically had to replay through the entire game over again, except on the highest difficulty. And this game literally does a one hit and you're dead system. In the oh no, they actually did a shield system. But I think in the highest difficulty, though, it pretty much becomes one hit and you're dead, which really sucks. Like, challenge-wise, though, you'll definitely get a challenge from this game. You will definitely get a challenge playing Iconoclasts. No, like, you know, the worst part is I actually had hoped that you could cheese the achievement, because after you beat the game, they allow you could change the difficulty of the game at any time. So it's like, oh, I'll just beat the game on the highest difficulty. Yeah, I did that. I didn't get the achievement. They actually require you to do a new game, and then you play it on the highest difficulty. It's basically what Darksiders has been doing, actually. Beat the game, okay, now you can play it on the highest difficulty. Darksiders 2, 3, and Genesis. Really, really sucks that they actually kind of does that. But I honestly, if I had the option to play on the highest difficulty from the beginning, I would have done that. Just so I could actually get it done. Probably would have taken me a lot longer, but I would have definitely done it. Also, bad dudes. Because, well,
I'm bad.
Finally actually got to beat that NES game. I've had this game since I was a kid. Watching Cthulhu the Third made me realize, you know what? I should finally actually give it a shot to beat it. Wasn't able to get my NES working, but I was finally decided to actually emulate it and beat it. Still haven't been able to get the NES to work, unfortunately. One hit kills the greatest idea in the history of gaming. You know, there's a time and a place where you could do it. And there's right. I mean, obviously, you're playing a game like Pac-Man or Galaga and such, but obviously, yeah, if you're trying to tell me an entire narrative of your entire world, maybe skip out on the one hit death. Okay, Popsky, what song is this? This is actually kind of Faded. It's a pretty solid song, Popsky. I forgot I actually left Bad Dudes in there. I actually believe I'm actually scratching my head here because I actually never remembered if I was actually able to. I didn't know if I actually streamed the arcade game. I don't think I did. I bought Johnny Turbo's arcade version of the game. I like the NES version better than the arcade version of Bad Dudes. I think the NES version is so much better. The arcade version's a lot more faster paced, but you could tell it's a quarter eater compared to the NES one. Moving on, we actually moved on to Mega Man 11. I didn't like it. I don't think it's bad, but the double gear system is actually kind of what killed it for me. And part of that is part of this whole thing is actually my fault. I literally almost want to say it's not you, Mega Man 11, it's me, because my expectations were to play a Mega Man game and not expect to actually really rely on the double gear system. And I feel like the one part of the double gear system, you didn't really get to use the powers for that long, and when you actually needed to use them, they turned the fight from being extremely difficult to being manageable. As in, it's required to actually use the double gear system. And they don't actually... And I think because of the double gear system and the way they design some of the bosses, the robot masters in this game, either make some of the robot masters a little too easy, or why are you even actually including this the double gear mechanic when fighting them? Obviously they are, because it's the core... They tried to make it the core mechanic of the game. I think this game took me, what was it, 5? This game took me 5 hours to beat. And I probably actually lucked out, because I think I actually streamed this game on the weekend. And because I played it on the weekend, I actually got discounts. This game actually can actually detect what day of the week it is, and it will actually change or decrease the prices in the store based on what day it is. So if you play this game on the weekday, yeah, expect this game to actually be harder for you and more expensive in terms of actually buying upgrades and such. Absolutely ridiculous. That that type of mechanic actually exists in this game. Not else much to say about Mega Man 11. This is probably a game I wouldn't recommend. Simply, like, the double gear system's not a bad idea. The story itself was actually fine. I honestly found it like, you know what, this actually kind of works here. You actually get a little bit more backstory between Dr. Light and Dr. Wily. You know, I don't expect the great American novel with every character. It's like, I play Mega Man games. Like, alright, what am I gonna get? It's like a person saying, the reason why I play Pokemon. I like the gameplay, and I want to be a Pokemon master. Mega Man. I want to fight Robot Masters, and I want to beat Dr. Wily. It really is that simple. It doesn't need to be complex. It's like that decreasing the cost of everything is an interesting feature. Some of the achievements, though, in Mega Man 11, I would not recommend doing, because they do the whole terrible thing of beat the game on superhero difficulty. Superhero difficulty in this game means no health drops. I am very thankful to the people who actually watch me stream be able to tell me that. Literally go through this game, and enemies will not drop a single health pack at all. Not like an E-Tank or anything like that. The actual restore your health. So you literally would have to play through the entire stage with one life bar. Also, the platforming in this game is also kind of awkward at times, even if you do use the double gear system. I feel like with the designs of Mega Man 11 and Mighty Number 9, and yes, I'm going to drag Mighty Number 9 into this, there definitely is there's a shift going on with the people who are developing games, and you could tell that the people who are now developing games are the people who designed, or at least the people who played games like I Want to Be the Guy. And I personally don't like that, because I consider myself to be above average when it comes to games. Obviously, I've been playing games for decades now, so I have a lot of inherent wisdom. That doesn't mean I have the execution to be at the level of people who frantically and, quite frankly, spastically play games like Kaizo platformers and I Want to Be the Guy, or was it, I think I'm trying to remember, I Want to Be Bashi or something like that, I think. You know, was it Battle Kid? I think that's another of those super difficult platforming stuff. There's definitely been a shift towards designing your games like if you're going to speedrun them. And I don't think that's the right direction to go with, especially if you're trying to get the masses, or the average person, to get to play your game. And especially when you're deep-rooted into Mega Man 11, because Mega Man games can be difficult, but they have that fun, I've mastered the game now
that I'm actually enjoying myself because I know what I'm doing. I know what to expect, and I want to be able to beat the game almost like a speedrunner, but obviously not to the point where you want to do like glitches and such. It's the same reason why I enjoyed playing Bad Dudes over and over again. It is a very nice, lovely, self-contained experience. And yes, I'm using the word lovely. That was actually the end of, that's the end of June, actually. Hey, how's it going, Newton? Happy New Year's Eve to you, Newton. Happy New Year's Eve. But now we move on to Earth Defense Force 5. Good old Earth Defense Force. Hang on a second. Do I actually have that set up? I don't think I do. I do not have that set up. I am so sorry, everyone. And I also just disabled my channel points, actually. And there's a reason for that, and I'll go into that at the end of the stream. Earth Defense Force 5. I think I like Earth Defense Force 4 a little bit better. Because I like the corniness. The corniness of it. I don't know, I've been drinking. What can I tell you, man? My perspicacity here is at all-time lows here. I am enjoying well, can't call it a highball anymore, considering the actual ice melted a while ago, but it's a whiskey and Coke now. It has become a whiskey and Coke. I actually think I'm out of Coke. I am out of Coke, but I'm not out of whiskey. Like I said, it's more because my actual vocabulary has decreased. I can't even say perspicacity anymore. That's where we are. Earth Defense Force 5. Amazing game. I would definitely recommend anyone who is looking for stupid fun. You know, the dumb kind of fun. It's like, this is dumb, but I'm enjoying it because this is the most simplistic third-person shooter you will probably ever play. Any other Earth Defense games are probably the most simplistic third-person shooter games you'll ever play. But in terms of the performance, I think I still like Earth Defense Force 4.1 better. Not because of the gameplay. If anything, the gameplay between Earth Defense Force 5 and Earth Defense Force 4.1 are more or less the same. I would probably actually put it in the favor of Defense Force 5 because things are only getting better. And some of the weapons are absolutely hilarious, and they added interesting little things that let you mod your weapons to do really amazing things. I feel like, honestly, if I could have had to fight the enemies from both Earth Defense Force 4.1 as well as the enemies from Earth Defense Force 5, that would have been like a dream come true. So hopefully Earth Defense Force 6 will actually deliver. But there is definitely one thing that Earth Defense Force 5 probably actually had over Earth Defense Force 4. The final boss. Definitely the final boss in Earth Defense Force 5 was better. But I think I like the B-movie delivery of Earth Defense Force 4 over Earth Defense Force 5. This is definitely a game, though, that I would recommend. This is a game that you want to be able to play with your friends on normal difficulty. The difficulties in this game do eventually lead to the super fun weapons, but playing normal is actually what it means. It means it's your first time actually playing these games. It is not... Do not jump into hard thinking you'll be able to walk away without any scratches on and such, because it does not matter how good you are at a third-person shooter. Earth Defense Force is such a stupid... And like I said, the stupid in the type of fun and challenge and such, that it doesn't matter. You gotta raise your health first, and that means farming health. I think, if anything, that's probably the only thing that actually needs to be improved is... And that was the one thing I think I would say that Iron Rain actually did better, was not having to really pick up a ton of gems. I could just buy my health. Buying health is a solution, honestly, and I actually do look forward to... I already see the improvements in the upcoming Earth Defense Force. I think it's World Brothers, where it's an exclusive on the Switch, where it's going to be voxels. So everyone's a voxel, but they already did the smart thing, and I actually kind of like it. It's another solution to what Iron Rain did. Iron Rain made the design choice of you can be any class you want. World Brothers is making the choice saying you can have 4 characters in your squad. So you can then switch out and become a wing diver, switch out and become a ranger or a fencer or an air raider. And I think that that's an amazing solution to allow people to have the flexibility to be able to play the classes they want. And even better, and probably actually the biggest detriment to the Earth Defense Force series, you have a character class like the Wing Diver who could just jump so far ahead and be so mobile that they literally just take away all of the fun before you actually get over there as the fencer. Critiquing under the influence. I will take that CUI. I will take that CUI. What else actually? Actually there is one other game we actually played. I played the beta of this, actually. This game didn't come out. Actually, you know, this leads us almost into August, but there's still one other game we actually played in July and beat at the end. But Fall Guys, actually. It didn't come out it came out in August, but I was actually lucky enough from Devolver Digital to actually get the closed beta copy of the game and also be able to give out keys. And first off, thank you very much, Devolver Digital. Really actually appreciate that. And I still think this is actually a solid game. There's still some things I don't like. I'm not a huge fan of battle passes. I'm not a fan of leveling up and dealing with seasons and such. But in terms of just the straight gameplay, though, for this game, it's a lot of fun. And I think the only reason I burnt myself out playing too much in the closed beta and in Season 1. Because they're just started Season 3 now, and they're doing the whole Christmas/winter winter season, and they're definitely doing the right thing. They understand that they constantly need to release more maps. Because as long as you keep releasing more maps, that will increase the actual replayability of the game, where each time is going to be fun. I personally hope Fall Guys continues to do well, because it's a battle royale game that is more than just about shooting people. It's a simple 3D platforming game, and I really appreciate games that can just take a simple premise and run with the silliness. I will admit, though, I was not a fan of them taking away my name and giving me some generic number, but they've somewhat compensated by allowing users to have silly nicknames and titles. So, you know what? It works, honestly, for something as silly as Fall Guys. So you're not actually going to get mad at the person who's streaming, but you won't have... I guess they couldn't fix the HTML error issue with the Steam usernames, but I think just giving characters, every single person who plays their own unique nickname and such, you know, it works for how silly the game is. This was a game I was actually surprised with, and actually, this game came out, I believe, in 2019. I'll actually double check that, actually. This is another game I actually remember seeing at, and playing at, Oh no, this game came out in July 2018. Yeah, so I actually played this at the PlayStation Experience 2017. Might have been 2018, actually, now that I think about it. This was another Metroid. This is the third Metroidvania I played this year. For an indie dev studio who actually made this, it's decent. Unfortunately, because they tried to focus on having that procedural generation in a Metroidvania game, it feels like they focused more on that than actually developing the actual story of the game, because really the story of the game is more or less non-existent. And I didn't know if I was actually playing more of a rogue game or just a Metroidvania game. And it's very much a straight Metroidvania game, but just with procedural generation. It really is actually that simple. It's overall a short game to play. I think if anything, this is the type of game I would want on my resume in terms of developing a game. But as for gameplay, it doesn't do anything to exactly stand out. It's all kind of just... It's... What's that saying? Function over form. This is an extremely functional game. And for the art is actually fine. But in terms of form, and in terms of actually letting yourself be able to enjoy the game itself, it's not... they didn't let you do much with it. They really didn't. You couldn't, like, farm gold or farm a lot of experience. It was very much play through the game. It was a straight shot and enjoy solving the mystery. And then fight the big boss at the end, and then you're done. And then if you want to play again, well, you can either play the same seed and accept the platforming challenges ahead of you, or play a different seed and go through the game again. It's hard for me to recommend this game. Like, this is a functional Metroidvania game. But it just lacks that personality. It doesn't stand out. It's just completely competent in every single way. But let's move on to the one game I probably didn't beat this year. Actually, I know I didn't beat this year, Adventure Island. Why did I try and beat this game? This game has the longest stream I've ever done on Twitch. Ever. Over 8 hours. I tried to beat Adventure Island, and I couldn't do it because of World 8-3. That is easily the most difficult jump you will ever have to do in video games. Probably one of the most difficult... Actually, probably the most... at least in terms of the franchise, I should say. This was not a forgiving game. Like, World 8 probably took over half of the time. Just to do it. And I wasn't able to beat it. Wasn't able to do it. Just wanted to leave that special mention in there to, yeah, no, I don't think I could beat Adventure Island because of that World 8-3 jump. I know the fire is a pot, but actually getting over the bats, as well as jumping at the right moment, really, really difficult. And I couldn't do it. I remember I think I spent maybe like over 2 hours trying to just beat World 8-3. Never mind World 8-2 or World 8-1. Or I think there was a World 7 stage that also took a couple of hours just to actually knock down. Adventure Island games are nobody's fool. But I was able to actually play a little bit of Fight and Rage. Now, this was a game I actually played in 2019. This is a amazing indie darling beat-em-up game. This is actually, if anything, if you like Streets of Rage, I would probably actually recommend Fight and Rage to you. Because not only does it actually take, like, the best parts of Streets of Rage, which means you can, if you're thrown, you could land on your feet, so you can hold up and jump and land on your feet and not take damage. You can combo. It uses the Streets of Rage 3 special meter system, so it charges up. You could use your special and chain that in, and if you want to actually use your special at any time, you can then at the cost of your health. It has an amazing soundtrack, a really standout sprite-based, characters and sprites and such, and yes, they're all, majority of our anthropomorphic characters that you'll actually be fighting. But just watching the enemies blow up into bones are absolutely hilarious. That it actually makes you want to do overkill over and over and over again. Probably the one thing I don't like about the game. The training system. I like that the game trains you how to fight, but at the same time, yeah, I can't pull off half of the moves as well. This game doesn't do fighting inputs so much. It's kind of, how to explain? Actually, you know what? There are fighting moves in this game, but it's not the main course. It literally is more of a button mashing style game. But the one thing that makes this game stand out over anything else, the ridiculous number of endings there are to this game. Now, obviously, there's only so many stages in the game, so obviously you'll be fighting the final boss each time, every time. And the endings are very self-contained. But the ending somewhat changes depending on the path you go and the stages you go to, depending on your choices and actions. And also having the choice of having to play through the game yourself, that has its own set of endings. Playing through the game with a friend or two friends, and each of those, respectively, will also have their own set of endings as well. And of course, if you're a loner like myself, you can play this game with AI. You could literally have a squad of 3 with you, and it could still be a fun single-player game to play through. I would personally recommend it. It's just that good of a beat-em-up. But like I said, though, if you're not a fan of anthropomorphic characters, then that's probably the only thing. It's extremely... It's that cartoony sprite art. Exaggeration. So you have a character like Gal. Yeah, when she moves up and down, so do her breasts. So, or if you love beating up a bunch of rats and cats and bats, well, there you go. I don't know why I left that in there in the slideshow, but I did. There was a night I played Fall Guys, Tetris, and Fighting Rage. That was actually probably the one thing. I don't know. I have a difficulty trying to actually do multiple games on a stream. I don't know why. I'm so used to where I just stream one game a night. And I know in reality, in terms of viewerships, people want to see multiple games. Rather than a single game in a night. But I can only make that type of system work if I was playing maybe retro games. Because it is actually kind of difficult, actually. Although I did have fun actually making this myself here in Affinity. I think I made this in Affinity Designer. Fairly certain it was a designer. We actually, let's see, where are we actually? We actually zoomed right through. We are actually, that was literally August. August was all of Fall Guys. Oh no, actually Fall Guys and this, the remake of Ys 4, Memories of Celceta. I regret not actually just simply dedicating a year to a franchise and playing through it. Not because, like, I'll get more viewers or anything like that, but just simply because it was been so long since I beat Ys 7 that I kept resisting and not allowing myself to actually play games that I want to play. And this was definitely one of them. And I finally got to play it, and you know what? This was actually a solid Ys game. This was actually the party system style of Ys. I know there's a lot of people who are divided between the party system and then just being able to play as Adol by himself. Sorry, excuse me. But this was actually solid. I actually found the voice acting to be very charming, nice. Story and gameplay were actually fun. A little awkward to figure out at first, but once you figured it out, it was actually really good. Difficulty. Really difficult at the start, and this game doesn't have a clear-cut, like, reverse difficulty curve, but it definitely gets a little bit easier once you actually, build up your health. The first boss will beat you into the ground like nobody's business. Also, this was actually the start of them using the flash guard and flash dodge system. Super exploitable once you actually figure out how to do the flash guard system. Especially when you become leveled up. The one thing I didn't like about this game, though, the story and gameplay to me were perfectly fine. Every single character had an ability to get through the next dungeon. There were little things here and there to actually find, and tons of characters and side quests to do. The one thing I didn't like about this game, you had to play through the game twice if you wanted to get all the achievements. You absolutely had to. Now, granted, it's not that bad, because if you actually just simply, it's one of those games where it's like, I just want to play the game on the highest difficulty, when in reality, the best strategy is to play the game on normal, go through the game on normal, and then beat the game on the highest difficulty. But then, of course, you'll be able to bring in, your New Game Plus characters, so they'll be a higher level, and you'll have the best armor and weapons in the game. This game also did the whole trading system, which, it actually worked. The leveling up systems for your armors and weapons. Interesting, but with the constant introduction of weapons and armor, I don't think that's the best use of its time, honestly. It felt like it was really kind of a waste, honestly. Actually, upgrading, like, there was no point to actually upgrading your weapons and armor, because you would always find yourself a new set until you get to the ultimate armor and weapons. And it's like, okay, that's when you actually want to invest in things. But honestly, the Ease party systems to me are perfectly fine. I like them. I like the story. Only downside is I don't like the fact I had to play through the game twice to get all the achievements. But it's a fun remake. I'll probably have to say a little bit more once we get up to the next Ease game here. You know what? There is actually something I should say here. This was the night, and the reason why these 4 games are here, this was the night I actually tried to do like a fortune cookie style stream. And throughout this entire year of streaming, or getting back into streaming after the god-awful year that was 2019 for me, I still didn't have a real... I was either on the extremes, like 2015 through... No, let's say 2016. 2016 through 2018, I pretty much streamed every single day. No problem, enjoyed it, had a lot of fun and stuff. Every single night, I would do a simple 2-hour stream. It was my time to play games, and I enjoyed it. It's still kind of hard for me to actually... I think, if anything, now I've got a bit of a schedule set in now. But I'm realizing I think I need to change that schedule. But I need to find a way to actually make it productive. And when it comes to doing random nights and such, and I feel like, oddly enough, maybe the hard part is actually just simply trying to do all the data entry and trying to actually make it so I can have the titles fit on YouTube now. I don't know. Like I said, I still like Star Trek: The Next Generation of the Game Boy. It is probably one of the weirdest games you'll ever play, because you actually get to be the captain of the Starship Enterprise. You're obviously not Jean-Luc Picard, but you're commanding the Enterprise. You're literally doing ship battles and repairing the ship and powering up the weapons and such. It's a weird, fun simulation game. I'll actually move on here. I think that's what was it? That was... That was actually the, What was that, actually? What month are we? We're actually in September now. And I have... There we go. Sorry, I'm also looking at my spreadsheet to kind of see what date we're on. I literally spent my entire time before this making all of these thumbnails for the art, and also doing all the data entry for 2020. Really? I'm there? Oh yeah, there was that one night of Among Us. Yeah, Among Us. That, to me, is actually probably the best type of Mafia, Town of Salem, yeah, casual game you will ever play. And it really just comes down to one simple thing. It cuts out all of the complexity of actually playing those games. I remember actually playing a game like Mafia or Town of Salem, like, years ago, like maybe a decade ago now. And it was an interesting game. Trust me, my awkward pauses are the best pauses. Oh my god, I just impersonated Donald Trump. Alright. No, but seriously, the one great thing about Among Us, it just takes the format of what made the entire experience of playing Mafia or Town of Salem in person an extremely complex experience. And I remember, if you've ever watched the Runaway Guys Coliseum, I'm trying to remember what year they actually did. They actually did a game of Werewolf or Town of Salem and such. And there are just so many rules, and you're not actively getting to do anything. It literally is, are you a villager, are you a hunter, or are you the killer? And it's close your eyes like you're playing Heads Up 7-Up. Not the funnest experience, honestly. Oh god, why did I say funnest? Not exactly the most fun experience. Among Us changes that and makes it a proactive experience. It cuts out all the fat, and I know some people like that. They like having the detective or the bounty hunter or whoever you want to call it, and they can actually go and kill the villagers, or you can have a doctor save someone, or the bounty hunter can protect a villager, for example. And those are all nice little rules you could have, but simply cutting all of that out and saying, here, just do extremely mundane, simplistic tasks, just makes that game makes Among Us so much better, because it's more about being social than it is about providing in-depth gameplay. If you have a solid group of friends, Among Us is definitely a game you should actually try and include in at least once or twice to see if people actually like it. Especially since it's free on mobile, and it only costs $5 on the Switch, and it's $5 on the Steam. It's definitely worth it. What month? We're actually still in September, surprisingly enough. I actually played through a lot of games in September. Pocky and Rocky with Becky on the Game Boy Advance. If you ever played Pocky and Rocky, you probably know that's a super difficult Super NES game by Natsume. Pocky and Rocky with Becky, probably one of the shortest games out of the Pocky and Rocky series you'll ever actually play. I mean, extremely short. As in, I tried to actually play this game on Smite's Speed Bump show. And I'm so sad. I didn't... You know the worst part, actually, of this whole thing? I actually had, I think I had maybe 7th place or something like that in terms of lowest times. I didn't submit my time into speedrunning. The point of Smite's show, Speed Bump, is picking games that basically have no or very little amount of people who have speedrun a certain game, and you can compete for it. There's no prizes or anything like that. It literally is more of, hey, let's see how good you could actually speedrun a game. And it's still fun. It's still going. They're still doing it. But I wanted to try it because I actually have the actual cartridge for this game, which is actually really rare. And apparently it costs like $100 to get this cartridge now for some ridiculous reason. But overall, though, it's a nice, self-contained... I'm trying to actually think. Would you call this a shoot-'em-up style game? I don't know if I call this a shoot-'em-up style game. Either way, though, it's a Pocky and Rocky game, though. Being able to simply play through, I think it was like 5 stages. And it would take like half an hour to beat once you actually figure out how to beat the enemies and stuff. This is leagues easier than the original Pocky and Rocky 2. It is so much easier. But it's still a lot of fun. And I would definitely recommend actually playing it. And then I played probably my biggest amount of shovelware I probably have in my Wii, for my Wii. Furu Park. Imagine actually taking Pocky and Rocky and turning them into a 1-minute mini-game. Take every single Natsume IP that you could think of and have them completely disfigured into short mini-games where you're waggling the Wii remote. That's what Furu Park is. It is easily probably the worst game I actually own on the Wii. Absolute shovelware. If you want to watch that stream just to kind of see just how weird the Wii actually was, like, can we be frank here? Like, a lot of the Wii games, the Wii had so much shovelware because of the motion sensor stuff. It had so much, and I'm so glad we're almost out of that park, out of the woods when it comes to motions. Motion-based gameplay. It works for a lot of people. I know some people who play Splatoon 2, they are diehards when it comes to the motion. I don't know how people do it. But it was really, really bad for the Wii, though. Let's move on, and let's move on to a better game, Scat. This is another game I actually own on the NES, but I never actually beat, and I have no idea why this game came out onto the Nintendo Switch Online. I think Nintendo actually owns the copyright to a lot of Natsume games because either Natsume does not exist anymore, or no one's actually fighting for it. And so no one's claiming the copyright, so they can actually add it onto their store. Because I don't think EA is going to actually try and claim that they want the Immortal. Like, Nintendo has been making the weirdest deep cuts, and this is one of the deep cuts I'm actually okay with. This is a super fun shoot 'em up where you actually have a life bar. Very much like UN Squadron. You have a life bar. You only have one life, but you can take 6 hits, so technically you have 6 lives. But you get to keep going every time you get hit. It does get difficult once you get past stage 3, but it is definitely worth it, and it's very much a 90s game. The characters' names are literally Arnold and Sigourney. Guess who was very well known during that time? Actually, we're actually still in September. September apparently was my month of just beating a bunch of little games here. River City Ransom. Never actually beat the original until now. No, not like Time Crisis. Time Crisis was a light gun game. Time Crisis was a light gun game. I would compare Scat to being a straight up shoot 'em up, like Gradius and such, but without being incredibly difficult or incredibly laggy. Like, it is Natsume at their basic, but to me, basic is, if anything, probably the most fun you could ever pull out of a game. But River City Ransom, I played through, River City Ransom Underground? I went through, River City Girls? I never beat the original. I've only actually played it because I never knew what to do, and I finally decided to sit down and actually beat it, and I probably would say this isn't an easy game, especially if you play the game on advanced. Like, the difficulty difference is like jumping the Grand Canyon between advanced and novice. But I wanted to see if I could actually beat this game in a decent amount of time. I still can't beat the game as fast as Cthulhu the Third can, but I can still actually beat this game in a fairly decent time. I think it takes me like an hour because I still need I need to be able to farm enough money to buy boots so I could actually kill the Lee brothers quick enough, as well as buy some health items and, of course, max out my health because, yeah, those Lee brothers aren't easy. Like, the moment you actually get comboed by them, you're pretty much dead. You are instantly dead. But I'm surprised, how to put it? I actually want to say this. I actually, playing through this game, I actually look back and you know what? I actually liked what River City Ransom Underground actually did in terms of improving the combat and having more variety. Because for how short River City Ransom is, you don't really get to do all that much or be able to enjoy using all of the moves the game gives you, or actually you have to buy, because a lot of the moves in River City Ransom are actually terrible. Like, you only really need either Dragon Feet or the Stone Punch, and that's it. And it's kind of a shame, actually, but this was an NES game, though. It was an NES game. I still would think, I'd honestly argue probably River City... Maybe River City Girls is probably the best, although that has its own little quirks as well. Are we out of the woods? No, we're actually not even out of the woods work. We still have 2 other games here we actually beat in September. I went through Lethal League Blaze. If you've ever played Hot Potato, this is pretty much Hot Potato with baseballs. It's like this weird punk style game. This is a game, obviously, it's meant to be played with multiple people. It's made to be played with friends. But there was a single player mode, and I finally actually played it, and there was a kind of interesting story, actually. It was very much reminiscent of the whole Jet Set Radio style. You know, the devs actually kind of got that feeling, aesthetic, and even music actually down so much that the actual musician that composed some of the songs for Jet Set Radio, he composed one for Lethal League Blaze. And it's probably actually the best song in the entire game. Honestly, though, super simple game. The only downside is if you actually want to unlock all the cosmetics and all the characters and stuff, it's really a grind fest. It absolutely is a grind fest. And not in the I just can't stop playing style. It's more of I've got to play so many multiplayer matches just to be able to get enough money to do it. Which is a bit of a shame, honestly, but it's an extremely unique aesthetic. I'm curious if the game developers are going to do something else in the future, because it's really sad when you see really good multiplayer games get support, but you don't have the viewership or audience to actually play it. And I feel like that's actually the biggest problem when it comes to video games nowadays, is everyone's flocking towards... Actually, you know, here's a weird analogy. Everyone is flocking towards the big box stores. You know, your Best Buys, your Amazons, you know, all these conglomerate style games. In other words, like your Final Fantasy 14s, your Call of Duties and such. That it's basically extremely difficult to actually introduce people to try something different or have an indie game actually stand out. And there's sometimes the rare ones, Among Us being one of them, showing the power of how an influencer can absolutely make a game go gangbusters. But short of that, though, unfortunately, we live in a terrible situation where a game's not even the game of the month anymore. It's not even the game of the week. It literally is the game of the day. And I've lamented about that before, but I just realized how bad our system actually is, where most people just want to play, you know, big title game over small title game. I remember Total Biscuit was huge about raving about Invisigun, and I only just recently uninstalled it from my computer. The reason why? I didn't have anyone to play with, and no one's playing it. Despite being a really interesting, you know, multiplayer game where you are literally invisible and you're trying to shoot your enemies who are also invisible. And the only time you're ever detected is, well, when you fire your gun. And the stage is designed where you can actually notice traces of where an enemy was. So you can try and figure out where they are and going to be and actually shoot them. Or Killer Queen Black, an arcade game that was really, really popular. That is the type of game that should have actually taken off, but it didn't. And it's honestly kind of a shame, because that's an extremely fun multiplayer game. Like, why didn't that game make it as an esport? And finally, played DuckTales Remastered. I adore the dedication WayForward actually did. Getting all of the old voice actors and redesigning the stages and the actual... They kept the core of the story the same. But they actually made it so the characters could actually act out and such. And I love the fact. I like the original DuckTales. I still do. I think, if anything, the modern DuckTales is good because it's a character-driven show the original DuckTales is good because it focused more on the world. And actually, I have got to take a break real quick here. I'll be right back. I gotta go do something real quick. And just in time, and there's a bot. Of course there is. There's always the bots. Sorry about that, guys. Just wanted to come back. I just need to go take care of something real quick. But that's actually how I entered September. I was with DuckTales Remastered. This was a really, like, the only problem I probably had with this game was literally the ending. The ending of this game was actually stupidly difficult. I don't know why. The rest of the game was actually fun and enjoyable and pretty much more or less DuckTales on the NES. But with a whole lot more of charm because of the voice actors and the scripting and writing. But that ending sequence at the end, though, pain in the butt. That game just needed to end the moment I've got the moment I got the lamp, but they just had to add an escape sequence that was absolutely terrible. Other than that, though, DuckTales Remastered, awesome, solid game otherwise. And now we're in October.
This is the one game that took the longest this year. Lacrimosa of Dana, Ys 8. I'm still very conflicted about this game. And the reason why I'm conflicted about this game is a couple of reasons. One, the story. This game's pacing was absolutely terrible. I was rewatching some of the streams that I did for this game, and oh my god. This game has such bad pacing that I spent more time on one chapter than I did with probably the majority of the game. The camera's not friendly co-op. Yeah, that's the other real problem. Like, let's address the elephant in the room here. NIS America did a terrible job localizing this game. Let's get that out of the way here, actually. And it got so rushed. And I don't know how, like, you know, localization would affect the gameplay development. But anything Falcom kind of tried to do to make it better didn't really help. They have really a poor localization, whether it was managed poorly, which resulted obviously in a bad translation. And the beta, like, I don't know why, like, the co-op is a beta feature they threw in, and I don't know why they would have that, because this was a game that was released back in 2017. It came out on the Switch, and then all of a sudden, here's the 4K mode, and here's a beta co-op. I feel like it makes sense, obviously, because it's a party system game, to try and actually make it a multiplayer game. But they didn't think it through. And I feel like there's only really a couple of ways. I don't think anyone has actually really strived to do a third-person action multiplayer game and do it well. There are very few, and I think, if anything, the actual solution really just comes down to we need to actually look at what people are doing on the multiplayer scene who are designing third-person action multiplayer games. Like, you know, the online, you know, the shooters and such, and drag them in to actually make something like this possible. Because I feel like you could do that. If you imagine if you actually had an Ys game, or with a close group of friends. Local would be more difficult, obviously. I think, if anything, online would really only be your solution, because if you do local co-op, you only have one screen to work with. I think you have to design a third-person co-op adventure with the assumption that they are actually going to be having different systems, which is very much possible now, because you have the Nintendo Switch. We are at a point now in gaming where, you know, you will have people who will either have multiple consoles or multiple portable systems to play it. And yes, it sucks actually having to own 3, but I would not be surprised if someone could actually go out of the way and say, you know what? Let's do what let's pull a, what Nintendo used to do. It's like with their old portable games, where if you owned it, you only needed one person to own it. You know, even Square Enix tried to do that haphazardly with Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles remastered. They're coming out later after the PS4 version. Oh, that sucks. Oh well. Well, it gives me more time. Well, I will probably play Ys 9. I will say. So here's my criticism about Ys 8 here. 1, the story. The story is easily the biggest issue I have with this game, with Ys 8. And the reason why, it throws the entire franchise under the bus. I absolutely hate the fact that it does that. It literally does that in the entire story. The other reason, Donna, one of the characters in the game, the name this game is named after, yeah, honestly, this game was designed where basically she could have had her own game. Quite literally. She took up so much time that Adol actually feels like he's the third wheel over Donna. Which is really weird considering Adol is the adventurer. The Donna solo stuff, the Donna solo stuff was actually fine. If anything, actually, it probably actually felt more like I was playing the single this was it, what, I don't even know what actually the E's fanatics call it, actually. The fan base calls it, like when you're just playing as Adol. I'm just gonna say just Adol. It's the just Adol gameplay styles. Your Arc and Nepishtim, your E's 1 and... I didn't want to say no party E's. That felt like a little weird way to describe it. It's like, well, there's party and no party. It's like, well... The no party games came out first. I feel like if you just say just Adol. Just Adol. Just Adol. Just Adderall. But the story was probably my biggest issue. Just because it threw the entire franchise under the bus. And you'll understand why if you beat the game. I really absolutely hated that part. I hated the ending just simply because of that one point. Everything else about it, about the ending and stuff, I was actually fine with and stuff, but that one part there, that one key part, if you ever beat this game, that actually ruins it for me. I love the characters and such in this game. The characters, the voice acting, they all did a decent to great job in the game. Really fun and enjoyable, but at the same time, the amount of gameplay mechanics this game has was absolutely ridiculous. This game really had you try and do pretty much everything. To a ridiculous degree here. And it had like all the cons as well. It's like, here's like one of the cons I actually don't like about the party system Ease games. Limited time quests. I really don't like that. It's probably an extremely annoying feature because you don't know if you're at the point of progression where you can actually do the quest, and you don't know how long you actually have. I really hate that, and I hope that gets removed. The time limit system has got to go with those quests. Like, the simulation of building up a village and stuff was interesting, but having to do so many side quests, like, there is a reason why this game took so long, and rightfully so. Gameplay-wise, party system, using the whole strike, slash, and pierce system, perfectly fine. I think it's interesting. It does a good job of actually encouraging you to actually play as your other characters, or just simply focusing on a single party that you like to play, and leveling up their moves. It's always actually fun with that. Flashguard system in this game. Not flashguards, no, some of the special moves in this game. Absolutely game-breaking. Game-breaking to be absolutely hilarious. Probably one of the best moments I've had was absolutely discovering how you could take what was effectively the strongest monster in the game and one-shot him in 5 seconds. Oh, not one-shot him, but, I don't even know how to describe it. Like, he literally goes from full health to 0 and nothing because graphical limitations. I think that's actually the best way to say it. Because of a graphical limitations glitch, you absolutely can destroy an enemy in a second flat, which is absolutely hilarious. Obviously not the way it's supposed to be played. Thankfully, this game did not require multiple playthroughs. I am glad about that. They did fix that, because... Although, actually, you know what? Technically, they didn't, because you do have the New Game Plus, and if you want to get the best armor for all your characters and the best weapons... Yeah, and actually the best weapons, you do actually need to play through the game twice. But in terms of achievements, you don't have to. So, to me, that's fine. I'm actually okay with that. Difficulty, on Nightmare, absolutely brutal. I can respect that, because you can get good at the flashguard system. I think, if anything, the only other major complaint I have about this game, the controls. The default controls for this game was god-awful. I actually had to go out of my way and look at E's Memories of Celcetta's controls and copy that setup
just to actually compensate for how god-awful the default controls were for Ys 8. I don't know how anyone else actually did it. I am thankful Falcom actually made it so you can customize your controls. But whoever designed those default controls, I don't know what they were thinking. It did not make sense at all to me. Couldn't wrap my head around it because of having to do... It's weird. Something as simple as adding jump can absolutely disrupt your entire gameplay flow. Which is weird, because the enemies aren't even jumping or anything like that, which makes me, like, the only reason why is to actually have your characters do platforming. So why don't we move on here to a game Board, actually. Board 55555 gifted me, actually, in November. Pretty much spent, well, being thankful, actually. And, by the way, all the people who watched me and have watched me for all these years, whether you watched me for one stream or just popped in to say hi. Thank you. Like, it actually does mean a lot to me. You know, to be able to actually spend time and just actually talking to other people. I don't really get to talk to many people or really get to know other people. I think that's why I take more of an interest in other people other than myself, because there's nobody really who takes an interest in me at all. So, for those of you who actually watched me, whether it's back from 2015 or today, thank you. But there is no game wrong to mention. This game is a... There is a game. This is a very interesting game that came out from a game jam. Very difficult, actually, for being a point-and-click adventure game. Kind of weird, honestly. It's like the good kind of weird, because it's like a point and click. I will say some sections definitely bled on a little bit longer than others, like the pay to win, but it's clearly they're doing a whole satire with it. Is it worth the money? To me, no, but it makes a good gift. I think if you know a friend who wants to enjoy a lark, like the old point-and-click ventures of old, but in a very condensed experience, this is actually kind of a nice gift to give them. Because everyone needs to laugh once in a while, and usually people who enjoy point-and-click games, they enjoy a little bit of self-deprecation. And it's fun. So once again, thank you very much, Board, for gifting me this game. Definitely a game I'm not going to forget anytime soon. I'm not going to 100% the game, though, because it requires a whole second playthrough. I'm not doing that. Those achievements are a pain in the butt to actually get. But moving on to the second game we actually played for November, playing through Hades. This game took a lot longer than I thought, and I honestly thought this would have been the contender for the most streamed game of the year. Like I said, Supergiant is like a swordsmith. It's only made swords, and it doesn't make anything else. And has only tried to make one game. It has literally made Bastion, then made Bastion 2.0, which was Transistor, made Bastion 3.0, which became Pyre, and then made Bastion 4.0, which became Hades. Hey, cool guy, how you doing? Happy New Year's Eve, man. Happy New Year's Eve to you. Just kind of going over in review of all the games I streamed this year, and kind of want to talk about what the future holds and such in terms of streaming, and what I'd like to do with the channel, and what kind of plans I might have for it in the near future. But I will save that for the end. But kind of want to just spend a little bit of tonight talking about the games I played. Which we're currently on. We're actually in November here. We're in Hades here. We're in the latter half. Well, actually, what am I saying? This game took the entire month. This is actually probably the October, pretty much from October until today, I've actually gone back into a streaming schedule. This is when October was pretty much the point where I decided 5 days a week instead of every single night, just to give myself the weekends. Has it proven effective? Currently, no. But I'm hoping to actually make that change. And I don't know if it requires me to actually stream a little bit less,
Or it should actually hit a... Or if I should actually keep the amount the same. But like I said, I'll discuss that a little bit later. It just hit New Year's for you. Dude, Happy New Year's. Welcome to 2021. I have a little bit of a rant if you want to wait till the very end for that. But for now, though, Happy New Year's to you, man. Hope you enjoy 2021. I hope you have a lot of fun with it. I'll be joining you shortly. Still December 31st here. But first off, Dan the Enigma, thank you very much for gifting me this game. Definitely enjoyed this game a lot more. This was a game that I'd actually say in terms of streaming, because I only play games when I'm streaming, I was actually desperate to be able to want to play this game more. Like my actual main file. Once I got to a point in Hades, I wanted to actually try the Hell mode difficulty. I was able to actually beat Hades the first time with the Hell mode difficulty on the 6th run. And I was able to beat the game on run 23 with the streaming file here. I'm going to call it the stream file here just for keep things easy here. But this was a lot of fun to play. But major gripes I have with this game though. 2 of them actually. One, the meta progression system, I absolutely hate. Because when I actually went back and played the game on Hell mode, knowing it would be even more difficult, having the enemies doing more damage, the enemies having increased health and such, you don't need to play this game on Hell mode. I honestly say throw it in the garbage, there's no point. Because even though it makes the game harder, the game already also gives you the Pact of Punishment. So there's absolutely zero difference between playing the game on Hell mode versus normal mode, with the one exception of the enemies will just have more health and do more damage. That is literally it. And you don't even actually get any benefits from it in terms of the meta progression. But the meta progression of this game, I don't like. I don't like the fact that I actually had to choose constantly. Am I going to try and aim to be successful for the run? Or am I going to submit myself to failure just to improve my chances for future runs? I don't think that actually worked really well for Hades. Or I don't like that system. The moment you don't have to worry about the meta progression anymore, absolute fun. An absolute joy to play. And I even mean in the sense of not having to worry about collecting any more darkness and such. Those power-ups are a major help to make you enjoy the main point of the game. I'll still stand by my statement of saying the downside of this game, because it's basically Bastion 4.0, this is a Bastion game where you are playing the game. You actually desperately need to play the game as a spaz. You need to play as spastic as possible. And I don't mean this in a derogatory sense. I mean, the way the game is designed is for you to spam that dash button as much as physically possible. Because that is your only defense in the game. And that is the only defense any and all of the Supergiant games actually will give you. You have invulnerability frames when you dash, and that's pretty much it. They really just haven't learned to do much of anything else. But that's fine, though, because a lot of people enjoy that. It is a very simplistic game, which I actually do enjoy, which is why I actually wanted to play this game more when it was the weekend, but I couldn't, because I need to wait for it to stream. And yes, this is when I know I'm actually having a problem, is I don't feel like I should be playing games unless I'm streaming. That's how bad it is, actually. There was no order to it. Like I said, there's... Yeah, the meta progression, it's so random in terms of your progression. I don't understand why why I had so much more darkness compared to, someone like Mecha GM or Family Jewels, they had so much less than me at the same number of runs. Because the actual amount of darkness that you'll actually get from the run itself is insignificant to non-existent. Short of actually doing a run over with the same weapon, which I wasn't doing. I was consistently switching weapons too, which was probably, if anything, the weird part. RNG. A little bit. Like a little bit. But the other complaint I have about this game, about Hades, though, the dialogue system. I think the dialogue system is absolutely, from a developer standpoint, it is ingenious. It is amazing, and it is phenomenal that game developers actually made such a system. And that is a type of system that should actually be utilized in other games. But at the same time, it is absolutely the worst. It is absolutely terrible, and it simply comes down to this point. Hades has, I think over 500,000 lines of dialogue that is spoken and acted out by a extremely talented group of voice actors and cast within Supergiant Games themselves. But here's the problem. That dialogue system walks all over itself. Because there's pseudo dating sim mechanics in this game, because you're trying to build up your reputation with each of the gods and all the other characters and stuff to find out their story. And Hades is an extremely character-driven game. It is not a story-driven game, it is a character-driven game. If you like characters, you will most likely enjoy Hades. Because every single character has an amazing personality, and it has very powerful voice acting behind each of those characters. But in terms of actually getting any sort of progression towards the epilogue, or getting the achievements done, the dialogue system is, if anything, one of the worst systems they've ever actually created. It is ingenious because it tries to build priority, but it is also a failure because if you hand out so much nectar to all of the characters don't know which story to actually focus on. So you'll end up getting dialogue that is nonsensical. Happy New Year's Eve, board. Or if it's New Year's where you are, Happy New Year. By the way, once again, thank you very much for gifting me There Is No Game Wrong Dimension. Tonight, I'm just kind of talking about all the other streams I've done over the year. It's really the only thing I could actually think of and do it justice in terms of talking about every single game. But for Hades, though, like I said, the dialogue system walks over itself, where you can't actually build up the relationships with the characters you need, or you just have to keep doing runs. I spent more time and doing more runs just simply because I got better at the game, trying to get the epilogue than actually beating the game proper. And not to mention all the other hidden aspects and stuff that they actually don't explain, which they had a solution towards, which was the fated list. But at the core, though, the actual core gameplay loop, it's actually good. It's actually good. I still don't like the meta progression. If you literally got rid of that, I probably would have enjoyed this game even more so. But as a character-driven game, this was definitely an extremely solid game for 2020. A very solid game for 2020. I'm calling this a 2020 game because this game, I know this game was in early access for a couple of years, but it officially came out this year. Which leads us into December, Darksiders December, which I started with Darksiders 2. I'd hate to say it, but this is probably the worst of the Darksiders games. Not in terms... You know what? I can't be nice this time, I'm sorry. My expectations of other Darksiders games was to actually get another Legend of Zelda game. With a... I don't know why I say God of War. I don't know why I compare it to a God of War combat system.
There's got to be a better game that describes it. But Darksiders' combat system was a solid combat system, and it had a formula that had worked. And I don't know why Virgil Games threw that in the trash can to try and make an MMO. No idea why. I like the characters in this game, but this game, unfortunately, was neither a character-driven game or a story-driven game. This is a story that involves Death, who is apparently the leader of the Horsemen, to try and prove his brother's innocence, is doing the most random things possible. And all of the characters you meet are acquaintances, where it's actually hard to actually remember what their names are or any sort of deep, meaningful purpose. And it's a really different comparison to the relationship between War and the Watcher or War and Samael, where you don't really build up any sort of in-depth connection between the cast of characters. It's more of Death running around trying to actually get his, people trying to actually prove his brother's innocence, and either he gets help or he doesn't get help. I'm sad to say this is probably actually the worst of it, and it gets only worse with that I was playing the definitive edition, where it was supposed to look graphically better, and the graphics were fine. I actually like the art style. Joe Madurei's art style is always solid, and the people who emulate it, once again, I think they do a stand-up job. But all of the gameplay systems, the talent trees, and the weapon rarity and stuff, it did not work for this game. It did not work for this game at all, and it definitely doesn't help that they had you play through the game twice just to actually get all the achievements, and this game had so many bugs that the game was crashing at the final battle, and the game didn't even give me the item I needed to do the Crucible, which consists of achievements. And the only way to do the true Crucible is to play through the game twice. It's just plagued with such bad game design choices. Like, you just forget the difficulty at all. Like, the difficulty didn't matter. The actual game design choices was such a problem that prevented the game from being amazing. Because there is actually a good game in there, but it's bogged down by its own game design choices. The story itself, it's like, that is a functional story. It's not anything sadly memorable, which was disappointing. But Darksiders 3 I wasn't expecting a Dark Souls game either. I think that's the weirdest thing now that I've officially played through all the Darksiders games. I feel like Darksiders are people who try to chase the bandwagon, because I was not expecting to be playing a Dark Souls game. And you know what? For the most part, it works. But it definitely still has problems. The story itself, it's another serviceable game. I think I like the character Fury more. But once I saw the relationship, like, okay, you know what, you're kind of doing a Darksiders 1 sort of deal here in terms of the Watcher and Fury here. Those actors needed a lot more script. Or just let them improv. Just to banter. Like, that was the perfect opportunity to be able to have people bantering off with each other, whether it was Ulthane and Fury, Joseph and Fury, the Watcher and Fury, just building up those in-depth connections. Unfortunately, it stayed shallow. It didn't really lean into anything. As for the gameplay, I think it was just average. Like,
I think I liked it a little bit more at the start because it was a Dark Souls game, but then once I started doing the Crucible, and I actually, surprisingly enough, I actually was finally able to play a game offline, and it was this game. And I went through, was it the Void DLC? Well, I think it was called the Void Keepers DLC. Yeah, I don't know why, like, the one downside about this game, I don't know why this game actually punished it. Like, you know when your Dark Souls formula works when you don't feel punished by doing well. This game, however, unfortunately, it worked for the main campaign, but it fell on its face at the DLC. Because at the DLC, I should have been level 100. When I actually would have beaten the Void Keepers DLC. Yeah, I was level 56. So I was out literally 44 levels. That was 44 levels. I could have raised my health, increased my damage. I was doing literally nothing to that boss fight. You know, the puzzles itself in the DLC was great to go through. And those maybe only one or two actual fights with normal minions I was actually really struggling with, but that final boss, though, was literally two shots, and I'm dead. And once I actually beat it, I look up and it's like, yeah, you should have been level 100. Like, I feel like the flaw of this game was that the game didn't actually give you enough souls, which the game actually made it impossible for you to actually lose progression, even if you did die multiple times, and like, you would lose your souls in a Dark Souls game, you would not lose your souls in a Darksiders game. I have no idea why I ended up such a low level compared to most people when they finished the game. And unfortunately, the game developers even patched any sort of glitches to artificially raise your level as quickly as possible to even out the edges. Speedrun this game? I'm trying to actually, I don't even know how fast you could beat this game. This is a game that actually you could go through very quickly. You can get through this game extremely quickly. That much I do know. This is a game that you could probably actually maybe beat in a day if you really had your heart and mind set on it. Assuming you're playing on, like, easy or normal difficulty. If you're playing on apocalyptic, it's gonna take you a while. Because, you know, unfortunately it does the bad type of difficulty where they just increase the health and increase the damage of all the enemies. I don't know if they increase the defense, but if you're increasing the health, it's like you're giving them artificial defense anyway. But once again, kind of the same problem. It has a New Game Plus, and it has an even higher difficulty mode called Armageddon. I don't really want to do it. I don't want to have to play through the game twice, even though this game was a lot better than Darksiders 2. I think, if anything, the only thing this game actually should have done that would have been better was having a bigger moveset for Fury would have been a lot more fun. Getting all the new weapons and stuff was really great, and shifting forms was really was actually a lot of fun because each of them had an ability which led you to solve more puzzles and such. But I'll say this, the combat in the game was lacking. Like, if anything, that was actually one of the weak points about Darksiders 3, the combat, because you couldn't block, there was no blocking in the game, and you were so focused on, your only real defense was evading. And there was a lot of the time I had to basically just, like, not even try to normally attack, because it wouldn't let me dodge, was to literally just wait and play like Mike Tyson's Punch-Out. Like, just wait for the enemy attack, dodge, and then counterattack. But overall, though, I think this game is a huge improvement over Darksiders 2, because it had a lot less bugs. It had a system that actually worked, being Dark Souls. And overall, it's a kind of interesting world to be on Earth. And that leads us to our last game of the year, which was Darksiders Genesis. See, this is actually what I think. This is a game that actually could have been a third-person
action game instead of a top-down, because this game really did feel like a Darksiders game, like a Darksiders 1, surprisingly enough. Just in the strange design of a top-down perspective game. This is definitely a game I would definitely say, hey, if you have a friend and you both enjoy the Darksiders franchise, this is the game you should actually pick up over Darksiders 2 and probably even over Darksiders 3. Because it's a very short, self-contained, and simple top-down, third-person action game. It has the puzzles, the chapters themselves are self-contained. You could change the difficulty within those chapters, or before you go into the chapters, I should say. And it's enjoyable. And being able to play as the final horseman Strife was probably, if anything, the best part. You should believe those times. I actually watched a Darksiders 3 speedrun. There is a lot of glitching in those games. There is a lot of glitching in those Darksiders 3 speedruns. Like, quite literally, ascending an invisible plane of existence. That's how broken, because the triggers for those to actually lead you instantly to the end. Yeah, you don't even have to fight the final boss. Also, can we actually talk about the final boss for Darksiders 3, actually? For a second. I want to actually go back to that for a second. Darksiders 3, final boss. I liked it, but at the same time, it's weird that Darksiders feels like it had the most underwhelming final bosses. Darksiders 2 had the same problem too. I don't know why, but Darksiders, in terms of games, aside from the original, aside from the first one, just out of nowhere had the most abrupt endings I've seen in a game. And I don't understand why. I don't even know why Darksiders 3 decided to pull the whole multiple ending bullcrap on me. And by the way, on my playthrough, I did get the best ending possible, just to let you know. There are other endings, or actually, I should say, there is only one other ending, actually. You either get the good ending, or you get the true ending. And all it does is actually kind of... It doesn't lift the veil or anything like that, it literally just sets up, like, what would actually then be Darksiders 4. Anyway, side rant over for that. Darksiders Genesis, though. Airship Syndicate, there are game developers that were part of Virgil Games, and Gunfire Games is the primary studio for all the devs who left Virgil. At least the lead devs and such. Yeah, it's clear Airship Syndicate, because this is a company that's owned by Joe Madureira, the comic book artist for Battle Chasers, and designed the characters of the Four Horsemen. Yeah, they knew what they were doing in terms of telling the story. This was actually a good story. It still had its big problem where the ending literally abruptly ended. It was so bad, I would literally, oh? That was the ending? Came out of nowhere, but in terms of presentation, though, Darksiders Genesis, solid game. Enjoyable. I wouldn't worry so much about farming souls until you actually get to the apocalyptic difficulty, but it's honestly a lot of fun. Like, if you enjoy just smashing people with your sword, I think if anything, playing War is a lot harder than playing Strife, but they did a great job making it so whether you're playing with a friend or playing solo, they made sure that you could solve all the puzzles, which was actually extremely nice. The only thing I'm actually curious about, since this game does have a local co-op and a multiplayer, an online co-op, is how did they handle being on the map? Can both characters run off and do their own thing, or are they stuck and constrained within a screen? Because I kind of hope they could run off and do their own thing, because if you do that, they could then make a party system style game and have them all be third person action and be an amazing style game.
But the artwork, music, I think if anything, actually probably the only thing I would criticize about this game would probably be the music. The music took a real backseat that I barely heard much of it, and it was hardly recognizable, and the only time it did, it glitched and would not repeating until I restarted the game. That was it. That was 2019. Oh, not 2019. That was 2020. That was 2020. But I want to end with this. So I did, like I said, I did a bunch of data entry today. I literally went through all of my streams and kind of wrote everything up. There is one thing I did get wrong, actually, on this sheet here. I only inputted everything of all the streams I highlighted. $605 hours streamed, pretty much 606. Let's be honest, I was off by 31 seconds. The actual time I had streamed, according to Twitch, and I believe them because there was actually a couple of streams that got lost into the void, which really sucks, but don't worry, they're recorded, so in terms of my YouTube channel, all of the VODs for 2020 are actually secured, and I'm working on uploading those to YouTube. The actual total time I actually streamed this year was not 605, it was 613 hours and 43 minutes. So in other words, there was also, I think 157 total streams. There was only one stream I know I didn't archive. It was actually a little bit more. But I know these two numbers are right here. There was 111 Beat the Backlog streams, 32 Game Archive streams, and 14 miscellaneous streams. Technically 15 now if we include this stream. Most played game, Ys 8, Lacrimas of Donna, took me 21 days and took 87 hours, 26 minutes, and 51 seconds. I beat 26 games this year, and longest stream game was Adventure Island, had 8 hours, 38 minutes, and 39 seconds, and I didn't even beat it. Damn. But, honestly, I really enjoy streaming. It's honestly a lot of fun. I greatly enjoy myself whenever I actually do streaming. Even if I do it such a... like, I really wish I could turn this into something bigger. But, let's talk about 2021. I want to preface this, and I know a lot of people always look to me as being the negative guy, and I always get a lot of crap for it, but let me just say this. I want to get it out here. 2021 is basically going to be 2020 again. With one small exception. You're going to have to get used to a new normal. Traditions of old, and the people who are currently in seats of power will try to just make it work like everything's just back to normal. And they're going to do their damnedest. But in reality, this is the year you're going to have to learn to adapt to a new normal. Both socially, economically, and in terms of work. And it will get better. We will have vaccines. They will not be immunities. We are now having to just deal with a new form of flu that humanity has never dealt with before. And it will mutate, and it already has mutated. And we will continue developing vaccines, so the worst case scenario will not happen to the people you know and love and care about. But you'll need to be vigilant and understand that things will get better in time. Don't hold the expectation for things to return to complete normalcy. And I hope that each and every one of you will continue to actually be vigilant and be willing to take care of your friends and family. And to remind your neighbors and be friendly to your neighbors. Because I know a lot more people, unfortunately, are being not their best, unfortunately, and It's unfortunate, but just remember, do not let yourself become overwhelmed by the forces that are outside your area of influence. Work within what's in front of you. Support your wife, support your children, support the friends who are physically near you, or the people you talk to online that are asking for help, or ask them if they need help with something. You might not be able to give them financial support, but you could lend your knowledge and wisdom and help them learn new skill sets to be able to adapt to a new type of job or a new type of career that will let them improve. Which brings me, speaking of skill sets, which brings me to 2021. I think if anything, especially related to actually Fabio here, actually, how he was actually did some streams recently and making some ringtones, I myself need to learn some new skills. My personal employment history, and which is why I'm struggling to actually find a job, is because I don't have a portfolio, and I need to change that. And so, in 2021, I'm going to actually spend a little bit more time creating very small projects on Twitch to actually teach myself how to do video editing, how to do audio editing, and maybe even learn to program. Be it Python, or SQL, or something else. But I know I need to start publishing things on a blog, and that's going to be my focus for 2021, is to effectively take a hammer between my personal life and the, I'm going to put this in quotes here, professional life, because being professional in the workforce, ever since I graduated at the start of the Great Recession, which has absolutely destroyed my career, has not done anything for me at all. We are now living in a time where it doesn't matter whether you're, personal, professional. Obviously, there's certain levels. You actually do need to be a certain level of class act, but we have clearly seen that more people who are successful are not exactly our betters. If anything, actually, I would argue, in terms of the streaming scene, we're probably seeing the worst people being rewarded. Same thing with YouTube. I have seen easily people who are rising up in the ranks on Twitch in the 0.01%, the most popular streamers ever, prove that in reality, if they actually were in an actual social setting with other people, they would probably be the last person anyone would want to actually talk to or associate with. But because there's money, people will like them. Or because there's, I feel like the one downside about YouTube and Twitch is basically it enables people to be a petty person. It's the same reason why a lot of people love watching reality television. Because they want to watch people be terrible. And obviously I'm not telling people to be a Mr. Rogers. You don't need to. We all have moments where, let's be honest, the bayonet should actually take over when the olive branch fails. But in terms of actually the wall of being professional and being, your private life, you can still remain anonymous, but in terms of actually the content you create, unless you're literally doing something that you shouldn't be doing, and you know who you are, grab the hammer and smash down that wall between your private life and your professional life. And make those blogs, make that content, because the person who's completely shameless, they're already doing it. And they've already got all the eyes and ears on them, and they're justifying their terrible behavior. But you don't have to do that. You can take your skill set, make a blog, and post your own content. A podcast would mean I would know other people. I don't know of a single podcast that is literally just a single person talking. I think, if anything, what I might actually do with my streams is, if anything, use them to actually practice video editing, audio editing, and maybe programming. I think, if anything, that is going to probably be the future of my streams. There will still be video games. There will still be video games that we played. Let's be honest, I have a bookshelf of a bunch of games I have never beaten. You could look at my backloggery. I still have... How many games do I actually have never beaten in my backloggery? I still have 204 unfinished games. I have a good amount of games to actually go through, both good and bad. And it'll probably actually do me justice to I'll actually do myself some justice to be able to play more of the games I want to play, but just never did. Or never actually give myself the time. Not Valkyrie Profile 4. That would be amazing if there was a Valkyrie Profile 4. Valkyria Chronicles 4. Wanted to play that for a long time. Never played it. The Ease games. Wanted to play it. Never came out. The Darksiders games. Never had them, but never actually sat down and played them. I think, if anything, what I might actually start doing... I'll still be planning games. So you'll still get like a game of the month and such. I'll still try and focus on that. So I'll always be beating a game every single month. But I want to try and actually learn a skill set so I can actually create that content. So I can actually teach people how to do things and be able to show other people, hey, this is who I am. I can teach you how to actually make videos online. I can teach you how to stream. I could teach you how to add more effects onto your stream, how to add filters, how to integrate them, and how to mix them together. That's the kind of stuff I want to actually make. Newton, have yourself a good night, and have yourself a happy new year. Speaking of which, I definitely went over how much time I wanted to stream. I simply want to, I expected this to last an hour. I didn't expect this to actually last so long. But, Newton, thank you very much, man, for subscribing for me. One thing I'm definitely working on is... we'll get emotes for this channel. I will make that promise to you. It won't be... it'll take a while. I'll still need to actually find an artist. I'm going to start actually asking people for help. And that's the other thing I've got to do in 2021. I need to start asking other people for help. But those are my goals. Those are my aspirations. Because I need to adapt. Because I can't just do data entry. I can't just be customer service in retail for the rest of my life. I need to build myself a skill set so I can actually do a job that I want to pursue personally. But that's going to be it for 2020. That's going to be it for me. Happy 2021, everyone. It's not New Year's where I am, but wherever it is you are in the world, whether it's the new year or it's still 2020 where I am, I wish you all the best. Thank you very much for streaming and for watching. And thank you for the support. And thank you for the company. Most of all. Sorry, just... I don't know if I'll be streaming as much in 2021, but we'll see. I hope I can. But it's definitely time to learn to adapt and learn some new skills and start sharing my opinion. I am actually upset at myself. I need to update. That's another thing we're going to be doing in 2021. We're going to be updating my soundboard. We're going to be doing a lot of updating. If anything, actually, that's probably what a couple of streams are going to be, is literally just updating. Not so much visually. Not yet, at least. But we'll be doing the small things. We'll be updating our soundboard and such, because I feel like I need to change voices and such. But for now, though, why don't we take a look and see who else is streaming tonight. It is the last stream of the new year, and there are a couple people who are streaming. I've always enjoyed doing these rundowns here because everyone needs to be able to be discovered on Twitch, and in reality, I need to actually make content on YouTube if I want to get discovered on Twitch. But for now, though, there are a couple of people who are streaming at the moment. Nintendo Caprice Sun, one of the Runaway guys, one of the OGs. He's streaming Secret of Evermore. If you ever want to watch a, I guess, side series of Secret of Mana? A series that didn't go anywhere, fortunately. There's Secret of Evermore. There's also Cthulhu the Third. That's who I'm going to give a host over towards. Really awesome retro streamer, extremely chill chat, probably one of the great communities. He has been streaming since the days of Justin.tv. Always enjoyable. That's going to do it for me tonight, though. Savior, have yourself a happy new year. And if you ever want to talk to me, or if you ever want to ask me a question, feel free to DM me. Feel free to join the Discord and ask me a question, and I'll do my best to help you out as well. Until then, you guys take care, and have yourselves a good 2021.